My daughter-in-law replaced my photo on the wall with herself in my wedding dress. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I walked into the living room and saw myself. Only it wasn't me. The frame was the same. The carved mahogany edges my grandmother had polished with beeswax every Sunday. The glass still had that tiny crack in the upper right corner from when Daniel, my son, threw a baseball indoors when he was 7. I'd never replaced it. The crack was part of our story. But the woman in the photograph wasn't me. She stood in the same pose, in front of the same house, wearing the same ivory lace wedding dress that had been my mother's, then mine. Her smile was the same practiced elegance I'd worn 32 years ago. Her hand rested on the same stone pillar. Even the roses in the background were identical, as if time had folded back on itself, but the face was hers. Olivia's, my daughter-in-law's. Do you like it? Her voice came from behind me, soft and sweet as poisoned honey. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed. My hands trembled at my sides. I thought it was time for an update, she continued, moving into my peripheral vision. This house deserves a new story, a fresh beginning. I turned slowly. She stood in the doorway to the kitchen, wearing my mother's pearl necklace, the one I kept in the locked drawer of my vanity, the one that was supposed to go to Daniel's wife only after I died. Where is my photograph? My voice sounded hollow, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Olivia smiled, that perfect camera-ready smile that everyone loved. In storage. Don't worry, it's safe. I just thought it was time this house reflected its current matriarch. I'm the matriarch of this house. Her smile widened. Are you? That was 3 months ago. 3 months since the first photograph disappeared. Since then, I've watched her erase me piece by piece, memory by memory, until I began to wonder if I'd ever existed at all. Let me go back. Let me tell you how it started, so you'll understand how something like this can happen. How a mother can lose her son to a stranger. How a woman can be replaced in her own home. Daniel was my miracle. I'd had 3 miscarriages before him, each one a small death that hollowed me out from the inside. When he finally arrived, healthy and screaming, I made a promise. I would give him everything. Not material things, though he never wanted for anything, but something deeper. Roots, belonging, a sense of continuity that stretched backward to ancestors he'd never meet, and forward to children he'd one day have. This house was part of that promise. It had belonged to my great-grandfather, a doctor who'd built it in 1903, with his own hands and money earned from house calls through 3 counties. My grandmother raised 5 children here. My mother preserved it through the Depression, the war, the lean years that followed. I'd maintained every tradition, every ritual, every story that came with these walls. Sunday dinners at 6, Christmas Eve with candles in every window, the rose garden my grandmother planted, the recipe box with handwritten cards dating back 100 years, the photo albums documenting every birth, every marriage, every graduation. This wasn't just a house. It was a living archive of who we were. Daniel understood that. Or I thought he did. He'd grown up listening to the stories, helping me polish the silver, learning the names of people in sepia photographs. When he went to college, he called every Sunday. When he started his career as an architect, he designed his first building as a tribute to this house's Victorian bones. We were close, not in that suffocating way some mothers cling to their sons, but in the way of 2 people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. He was my best friend. I was his. Then he met Olivia. I remember the first time he brought her home. It was a Sunday in April, and the roses were just beginning to bud. She stepped out of his car, wearing a pale blue dress that made her look like she'd walked out of a vintage photograph herself, She had this ethereal quality, delicate features, light brown hair that caught the sun, eyes that seemed to change color depending on the light. "Mom, this is Olivia." Daniel's voice had a tremor I'd never heard before. Nervousness, excitement, love. She smiled and extended her hand. "Mrs. Patterson, Daniel has told me so much about you. This house is absolutely breathtaking." Her grip was firm but not aggressive. Her eye contact steady but not challenging. She asked all the right questions about the house's history, the family, the traditions. She laughed at my stories. She helped me in the kitchen without being asked. She complimented the meal, the china, the way I'd arranged the flowers. She was perfect. "Too perfect," my sister Karen said later. "Nobody's that polished on a first meeting. She's performing." But I dismissed Karen's concerns. She'd always been suspicious of people, particularly beautiful women. I thought it was jealousy or cynicism. I should have listened. Daniel proposed 6 months later. They were married within the year, a small ceremony in our garden, because Olivia said she'd always dreamed of a family wedding. She wore a simple white dress from a boutique, not my mother's gown. That was still safely stored in the attic, wrapped in acid-free tissue paper, waiting for a daughter I'd never had. The first year of their marriage was uneventful. They lived in an apartment downtown near Daniel's office. They visited every other Sunday for dinner. Olivia always brought flowers or wine. She'd ask about my week, listen attentively, offer thoughtful comments. She fit seamlessly into our family rhythm. Then my husband died. Robert had a heart attack on a Tuesday morning while reading the newspaper at the breakfast table. No warning, no goodbye. One moment he was complaining about politicians. The next, he was gone. The paramedics said he was dead before he hit the floor. The grief was enormous, absolute, a black hole that consumed everything. But worse than the grief was the silence. This house, which had always been full of voices and footsteps and life, became a tomb. I wandered through empty rooms, unable to remember what I was looking for. Daniel was devastated too. Robert had been his hero, his mentor, his favorite person to call when he had a problem or a success or just wanted to talk about basketball. For weeks after the funeral, Daniel came by every day, sometimes just to sit with me in silence, sometimes to help with paperwork or repairs, or the million small tasks that death generates. Olivia came too, but she was different, more present, more involved. She started suggesting things. "You should update the kitchen. It would give you a project, something to focus on. You need better locks on the doors. A woman living alone has to be careful. Have you thought about getting rid of some of Robert's clothes? Keeping them might make it harder to heal." Her advice was always reasonable, always presented with concern. Daniel would nod along, grateful that his wife cared so much about his mother's well-being. But something about it made my skin prickle. She wasn't asking what I needed. She was telling me what to do. Then came the suggestion that changed everything. "You shouldn't be alone in this big house," Olivia said one Sunday evening. She and Daniel had stayed late to help me sort through Robert's office. "What if you fell? What if something happened and no one found you for days?" "I'm 57, not 90, I said lightly. "I'm perfectly capable of living alone." "Of course you are." She touched my hand, her fingers cool and smooth. "But why should you? Daniel and I have been talking. That apartment downtown is too small anyway. We want to start a family soon. This house has plenty of room. We could all live here together. Like the old days, when families stayed together." I looked at Daniel. He was watching me with hopeful eyes. The same expression he'd had as a boy when he wanted something badly but was afraid to ask. "It would help us save money for the future," he said. "And you'd have company. We could share meals, spend more time together, keep Dad's memory alive in this house." How could I say no? My son wanted to come home. He wanted to raise his future children here, in the house where he'd been raised. It was everything I'd always wanted, wasn't it? Continuity, family, tradition. "Let me think about it," I said. But Olivia's smile told me she already knew the answer. They moved in 3 weeks later. At first, it was wonderful. The house came alive again. Daniel's laughter in the hallways, the smell of coffee in the morning, someone to share dinner with, to watch television with, to make plans with. I felt less alone, less adrift. Olivia seemed genuinely happy to be here. She admired everything, the antique furniture, the family photographs, the collection of china that had been passed down through 4 generations. She asked endless questions about the house's history, took notes, requested copies of old photographs. "I want to know everything," she said. "This is my family now, too. These stories are my stories." I was touched. Finally, someone who understood what this house meant. Someone who would help me preserve it for future generations. I was a fool. The changes started small. So small I almost didn't notice at first. The throw pillows in the living room were replaced with new ones, in a slightly different shade of blue. Olivia said the old ones were worn and she wanted to freshen things up. It seemed reasonable. My favorite coffee mugs disappeared from the kitchen cabinet, replaced by a matching set Olivia had received as a wedding gift. She said it made more sense to use newer dishes. The old mugs went to a donation center before I could object. The furniture in the guest room was rearranged. The den was repainted. The curtains in the dining room were replaced with something more modern. Each change was small, each one justified with reasonable explanations. I told myself it didn't matter. They were just things. Olivia was just trying to make the house feel like home. But then the photographs started disappearing. It happened gradually. First, a few snapshots from the bookshelf in the living room. Old pictures of Robert and me from our early years together. Olivia said they made her sad, reminded her that Daniel's father was gone. She put them in an album for safekeeping. Then the wedding portrait in the hallway. My parents on their 50th anniversary. My grandmother standing in the rose garden. Each one taken down, packed away, replaced with something else. Newer photographs, neutral art, mirrors. The house was feeling cluttered, Olivia explained when I asked. Too many memories on display can be overwhelming. It's healthier to move forward, not live in the past. Daniel agreed. She's right, Mom. The house was starting to feel like a museum. It's good to update things. Museum. My home had become a museum in my own son's eyes. But I held my tongue. I didn't want to seem difficult, possessive, unable to adapt. Olivia was young. She had modern ideas. Maybe I was being too rigid, too sentimental. Maybe it was time to let go of some things. Then came the dinner party. Olivia wanted to host a gathering for Daniel's colleagues. A professional event, she said, important for his career. She planned everything herself, the menu, the guest list, the flowers. She asked me to stay upstairs during the preparations so I wouldn't stress myself. I agreed, though it stung. I'd hosted hundreds of dinners in this house. I knew how to entertain. From my bedroom, I heard the sounds of the party. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. At one point, curious, I crept to the top of the stairs and looked down into the foyer. Olivia stood in the center of a group of people, wearing one of my dresses. Not just any dress, but the emerald green silk I'd bought for Daniel's college graduation. She'd taken it from my closet without asking. On her wrist was my mother's bracelet. Around her neck, my grandmother's locket. She was telling a story about the house. I strained to hear. "Been in the family for generations," she was saying. "My husband's great-grandfather built it himself. 4 generations have lived here. It's an incredible responsibility, maintaining this kind of legacy. But it's also a privilege." She was telling my stories, using my history, wearing my clothes and my jewelry, speaking as if this legacy belonged to her. And no one questioned it. They smiled and nodded and complimented her on the beautiful home she maintained. I went back to my room and cried. The next morning, I confronted her. "You wore my dress last night, and my jewelry, without asking." She blinked at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Did I? I'm so sorry. I thought since we're family now, sharing was natural. You've always been so generous. I didn't think you'd mind." "I do mind. Those pieces have sentimental value." "Of course. I understand completely." She reached out and squeezed my hand. "I should have asked. It won't happen again." But it did happen again. Again and again. My clothes appeared on her body. My jewelry adorned her neck and wrists. My recipes were served at dinners she claimed to have created. My stories were told in her voice. She was consuming me, absorbing me, becoming me. And Daniel saw nothing wrong with it. "She's just excited to be part of the family," he said when I tried to talk to him. "You should be happy she wants to embrace our traditions. Isn't that what you always wanted?" "Not like this. She's not embracing our traditions. She's erasing me and replacing—" "That's ridiculous." His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Hard, defensive. "You're being paranoid. Olivia loves you. She's trying to help. Why can't you see that?" Because I was seeing something else. Something he couldn't or wouldn't see. His wife wasn't helping. She was hunting. The photograph incident happened 2 months after they moved in. I came home from the grocery store and found Olivia in the living room, standing in front of the mantel where my wedding photograph had hung for 32 years. The frame was in her hands, but the photograph inside had changed. It was her, in my dress, in front of my house, occupying my place in history. "What have you done?" The grocery bags fell from my hands. Oranges rolled across the hardwood floor. She turned, smiling. "I recreated it. Your photograph was fading, getting damaged. So I commissioned a restoration artist to digitally repair it. But while we were at it, I thought, why not make it current? Show who's caring for this house now? That's not restoration. That's replacement. That's my wedding day, my memory. Memories are flexible things." She set the frame carefully back on the mantel. "They change every time we remember them. They're never quite accurate. I'm just updating the visual to match the reality. I'm the one maintaining this house now. I'm the one preserving the legacy. The photograph should reflect that. You have no right. I have every right." Her voice remained calm, pleasant, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "This is my home now, Daniel's home, our future children's home. You're welcome to stay, of course. But you need to understand that things are changing. The house is moving forward, with or without you." I stared at her, this woman I'd welcomed into my family, and finally saw her clearly. She wasn't trying to become part of our family. She was trying to erase the family that came before her. She wanted the house, the history, the legacy, but without the inconvenient presence of the people who actually created it. She wanted to be me, but she also wanted me gone. That night, I tried again to talk to Daniel. I found him in his old bedroom, now converted into a home office. He was reviewing blueprints, lost in concentration. "Daniel, we need to talk about Olivia." He didn't look up. "Not this again. She replaced my wedding photograph with one of herself. She explained that to me. She was trying to do something nice, preserve the memory. By erasing me from it?" Finally, he looked at me. His expression was tired, frustrated. "Why are you so threatened by her? She's not trying to replace you. She's trying to be part of this family. But you keep pushing her away, criticizing everything she does." "That's not true. I've been nothing but welcoming. You watch her like a hawk. You complain about every little change she makes. You act like she's some kind of intruder instead of my wife." He stood up, his jaw tight. "Do you know what she said to me the other day? She said she's afraid you resent her for taking me away from you." "What? That's absurd. I'm happy you're married." "Are you? Because it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you can't stand seeing me with someone else." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "Maybe Dad's death messed you up more than we thought. Maybe you need to talk to someone, a therapist or something." He left me standing alone in the room, his words echoing in my head like accusations. Was he right? Was I imagining things? Was grief distorting my perception, making me see threats where none existed? No. I knew what I'd seen. The stolen clothes, the appropriated stories, the replaced photograph. These weren't hallucinations, they were real. But Daniel couldn't see it, or wouldn't see it. Olivia had done something to him, gotten inside his head, twisted his perception until he saw me as the problem. I was losing my son, and I didn't know how to get him back. The situation deteriorated rapidly after that conversation. Olivia's behavior became more blatant, more aggressive. She no longer pretended to ask for permission or show consideration for my feelings. The house was hers now, and she wanted me to know it. She started hosting regular dinner parties and luncheons, always introducing herself as the lady of the house. She invited my friends, women I'd known for decades, and slowly began to exclude me from the gatherings. When I questioned it, she said she thought I needed rest, that she was trying to take the burden of entertaining off my shoulders. My friends stopped calling me. When I reached out to them, they were polite but distant. Later, I learned that Olivia had been telling them I was struggling with depression after Robert's death, that I was becoming difficult and irrational, that it was best to give me space. She was systematically isolating me. More photographs disappeared. Every week, another memory vanished from the walls. The collage of Daniel's childhood in the hallway, the picture of my parents on their wedding day, the framed newspaper article about my great-grandfather's medical practice. All gone, replaced by generic art or photographs of Olivia and Daniel. My grandmother's china went into storage because Olivia said it was too fragile for everyday use. My mother's cookbooks were packed away because Olivia preferred to find recipes online. The quilts my grandmother had made were replaced with modern throws from expensive stores. I felt like a ghost in my own home, watching my life being dismantled piece by piece. Then she started wearing my wedding dress. I found her in the attic one afternoon, standing in front of the mirror in the full ivory lace gown that had been my mother's. She was examining herself from different angles, turning slowly, trailing her fingers over the delicate beadwork. "Take that off." My voice was shaking. She looked at me in the mirror's reflection. "It fits perfectly. We're the same size, did you know that? The same measurements. It's like it was made for me. It was made for my mother. It's not yours to wear. But I'm part of the family now. This dress represents the family legacy. Why shouldn't I wear it? Why shouldn't I be photographed in it?" She turned to face me directly. "After all, I'm the one carrying on the legacy. You're just the past." Something inside me snapped. I lunged forward, grabbed the dress, tried to pull it off her. She pushed me away, and I stumbled backward, hitting the floor hard. Pain shot through my hip. She stood over me, still wearing the dress, her face calm and cold. "You need to be careful. Falls can be dangerous for someone your age, especially when you're upset and not thinking clearly." She walked past me and descended the attic stairs, the train of my mother's dress trailing behind her like a ghost. I sat on the attic floor for a long time, crying. Not from physical pain, but from the realization that I was powerless. This woman had taken everything, my home, my son, my history, my identity, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. Or was there? That night, unable to sleep, I started going through old paperwork in Robert's office. Files we'd kept for decades, documents related to the house deeds, insurance papers, renovation records. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, just something, anything that might help me understand what was happening or give me some leverage to reclaim my life. That's when I found the folder labeled Estate Planning. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. A new will, a power of attorney, papers transferring ownership of the house, all dated within the last 6 months, all bearing my signature, except I'd never signed them. I'd never even seen them. My hands trembled as I read through the pages. According to these documents, I'd transferred ownership of the house to Daniel. I'd given Olivia power of attorney over my finances in case I became incapacitated. I'd revised my will to leave everything to Daniel, with Olivia as the executor. These were forgeries, sophisticated, professional forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. Olivia wasn't just trying to replace me socially and emotionally, she was trying to replace me legally. She was stealing my house, my assets, my entire legacy, and she'd manipulated Daniel into being her unwitting accomplice. Everything suddenly made terrible sense. The move into the house, the gradual isolation, the gaslighting, the suggestions that I was mentally unstable, depressed, irrational. She was building a narrative, creating a story in which I was an increasingly incapable woman who needed to be taken care of, controlled, eventually institutionalized, or simply written out of the picture entirely. And when I was gone, whether physically dead or simply removed from the house and stripped of legal authority, she would be the sole inheritor of everything. The house, the legacy, the family history. She would become me in every possible way. I should have gone to the police immediately. I should have called a lawyer. But I knew what would happen. Olivia would claim these were legitimate documents I'd signed and forgotten. She'd point to my erratic behavior, my accusations, my declining mental state. Daniel would support her. My friends had already been turned against me. Who would believe me? I needed proof, real, undeniable proof. And I needed to document everything carefully, systematically, so that when the time came to expose her, there would be no room for doubt. I started keeping a journal, hidden in the basement behind old paint cans. I photographed documents. I recorded conversations on my phone. I reached out to Karen, my sister, and told her everything. She believed me immediately. She'd never trusted Olivia and agreed to be my ally and witness. "We need to be smart about this," Karen said when she came to visit. We spoke in whispers in the garden, the only place I felt certain we weren't being overheard. "If she's forging documents, she's not working alone. There's a lawyer involved, maybe more. This is organized fraud." "What do I do?" "We find out who's helping her. We trace the forgeries back to the source. And then we blow up her entire scheme in the most public, devastating way possible." Karen, bless her, had connections. Her ex-husband was a forensic accountant. Her neighbor was a private investigator. Her book club friend was a lawyer who specialized in elder fraud. Within 2 weeks, we had a team quietly working behind the scenes, investigating Olivia's background, tracing the forged documents, building a case. What they found was worse than I'd imagined. Olivia wasn't even her real name. She was born Rebecca Sutton in Ohio. She'd changed her name twice, moved across the country 3 times, and had been married once before. Her first husband's mother had also been wealthy, also owned a historic property. That woman had died under suspicious circumstances, ruled a fall down the stairs, but never fully investigated. Her estate had gone to her son, Rebecca's then husband. They'd divorced 2 years later, after selling the property for a substantial profit. She was a predator, a professional con artist who targeted families with valuable assets. She found vulnerable men, recently divorced, grieving, lonely, and married them. Then she systematically worked to isolate them from their families, gain control of inherited property, and eventually walk away with everything. Daniel wasn't her victim. I was. He was just the key to the door. Armed with this information, we made a plan. The lawyer advised bringing everything out into the open in a controlled setting where Olivia couldn't deflect or manipulate the situation. We scheduled a family meeting, ostensibly to discuss the house's future and estate planning. I invited Daniel and Olivia, Karen, the lawyer, and a notary public to witness signatures. Olivia was delighted. She thought this was her moment of final victory, where I would officially sign over my rights and authority. She had no idea what was coming. The meeting took place on a gray Saturday afternoon in November. We gathered in the dining room, around the table that had witnessed 100 years of family gatherings. Olivia sat at the head of the table, my traditional seat wearing my mother's pearls and my grandmother's ring. She smiled at me with false warmth. "I'm so glad you decided to do this, Eleanor. It's the right thing, securing Daniel's future, making sure this house stays in the family." "In the family," I repeated. "That's interesting phrasing." Daniel frowned. "Mom, are you okay? You look upset." "I'm fine. Better than I've been in months, actually." I nodded to the lawyer, who opened her briefcase and began removing documents. "We are here to discuss the house and estate planning, but not in the way Olivia expects." Olivia's smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're going to discuss the forged documents currently in Robert's office, the ones bearing my signature on papers I never signed. The fake will, the false power of attorney, the fraudulent property transfer. The room went silent. Daniel's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" The lawyer spoke calmly, professionally. "Your mother discovered documents that appeared to transfer ownership of this property to you and give your wife power of attorney over your mother's affairs. She had them examined by a forensic document analyst. They're forgeries. Very sophisticated forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless." "That's insane," Olivia said, but her voice had changed. The sweetness was gone, replaced by something sharp and hard. "Eleanor, I don't know what you think you found, but— Rebecca." I used her real name deliberately. "Or do you prefer Rebecca Sutton, or Rebecca Callahan, from your first marriage?" She froze. Absolute stillness, like a predator caught in a spotlight. Daniel looked between us, confused. "What? Who's Rebecca?" Karen slid a folder across the table. "Your wife. Except she's not really Olivia Chen from Seattle, with a degree in art history from NYU. She's Rebecca Sutton from Dayton, Ohio. High school diploma only. Criminal record including fraud and identity theft. Previously married to Michael Callahan, whose mother died suspiciously, and whose estate was liquidated shortly after. Sound familiar?" I watched the color drain from Olivia's face. For the first time since I'd met her, she had no practiced response, no smooth explanation. She looked at Daniel with genuine fear in her eyes. "Danny, this is crazy. They're making things up. Your mother has been unstable for months. You know that?" "Don't." Daniel's voice was quiet but sharp as broken glass. "Don't call me Danny, and don't lie to me. Not anymore." He turned to the lawyer. "Is this true? All of it?" The lawyer nodded. "We have documentation. Background checks, criminal records, forensic analysis of the forged documents. We also have evidence that your wife has been systematically manipulating your perception of your mother, isolating her, and preparing to take control of this property through fraud." Daniel's hands were shaking. He looked at Olivia, or Rebecca, or whoever she really was, and I saw the moment his world collapsed. The moment he realized the woman he loved was a stranger, a dangerous stranger. "Get out!" His voice was barely a whisper. "Daniel, please! Get out of this house." Louder now. "Get out of my family. Get out of my life." She stood slowly, her composure cracking. "You don't mean that. You love me. We're married. This is my home." "This was never your home." I stood too, facing her across the table. "This house has stood for over 100 years. It's survived wars and depressions and loss. It will survive you too. You thought you could steal it, erase me, become me. But you were wrong. I'm still here, and you're leaving." For a moment, we stood frozen in a tableau of confrontation. Then Olivia's face transformed. The mask came off completely. What I saw underneath was cold, calculating, venomous. "You think you've won?" She laughed, a harsh sound. "You're a lonely old woman living in a rotting museum. Your son will never forgive himself for choosing you over me. This house is a prison, and you're going to die alone in it." She walked out. We heard her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of drawers opening and closing in the bedroom, then her car starting in the driveway. She was gone. Daniel sat at the table, his head in his hands. How did I not see it? How did I let this happen? I went to him, put my hand on his shoulder. "Because she was good at what she did, professional, and because you loved her. That's not a weakness, Daniel. It's not your fault." "I chose her over you. I called you paranoid. I told you to see a therapist." He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." I held my son while he cried. I wanted to feel triumph, vindication. But mostly I felt tired and sad. Sad for both of us, for the time we'd lost, for the trust that had been damaged. The lawyer cleared her throat gently. I need to inform you that we'll be filing a police report. What she did is serious fraud. There will likely be an investigation and possibly criminal charges." Daniel nodded numbly. "Whatever needs to happen." Over the following weeks, the full scope of Olivia's Rebecca's con came to light. The lawyer she'd worked with was arrested for his role in creating the forged documents. Police discovered she'd targeted at least 3 other families in similar schemes over the past decade. Not all of them had ended as fortunately as ours. One elderly man had indeed been institutionalized and died in a facility while his estate was liquidated. His children were still fighting in court to recover any part of their inheritance. Rebecca disappeared. The police issued a warrant, but she'd likely fled the state or the country. Women like her always had escape plans. I doubted we'd ever see her face trial. Daniel moved into an apartment downtown, not because I asked him to, but because he needed space to process what had happened. He came for Sunday dinners, but things were different between us. Careful, fragile. We were rebuilding trust, but it was slow work. I spent weeks putting the house back together. The photographs returned to their places on the walls. My real wedding photograph restored to the mantel, the crack in the glass still visible, still part of our story. The furniture went back to its original arrangement. My mother's china came out of storage. My grandmother's quilts returned to the beds. I found my wedding dress in the attic, stuffed carelessly in a box. It was wrinkled and dusty, but undamaged. I had it professionally cleaned and packed it away properly, wrapped in tissue paper, waiting for a future that might never include a daughter or daughter-in-law. But that was okay. Some things we keep not because we'll use them, but because they anchor us to who we are. Winter came. Snow covered the rose garden. I sat alone in the living room on Christmas Eve with candles in every window, following the tradition my grandmother had started a century ago. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like itself again. Like home. There was a knock at the door, Daniel holding a bottle of wine and a small wrapped box. "I know I should have called," he said, "but I didn't want to spend Christmas alone, and I thought maybe you didn't either." I let him in. We sat by the fire and talked for hours. Not about Olivia or Rebecca or the nightmare we'd survived, but about his father, about memories, about the house and its stories. He apologized again, and I told him again that he had nothing to apologize for. Before he left, he gave me the wrapped box. Inside was a photograph in a simple frame. It showed the two of us standing in front of the house, taken just last week by a professional photographer Daniel had hired. "For the mantle," he said. "If you want it. A new memory. Us. Just us." I hung it beside my wedding photograph. 2 images, 2 moments, 2 versions of the same story. The house had room for both. I'm writing this now, months after everything happened, because I want to document it. Not for revenge or vindication, but because this story is part of the house's history now. Like the Depression and the wars and the births and deaths that came before, this too is a chapter in our family's saga. Rebecca Sutton thought she could steal our story and make it hers. She thought she could erase me and occupy my place in history. She was wrong. You can't steal someone's life. You can't become someone else by wearing their clothes and stealing their photographs. Identity isn't something you can forge on paper or replicate in a staged photograph. It's built over decades, through love and loss, and the accumulation of small, authentic moments that can never be faked. She wanted to be me, but she had no idea what that actually meant. Being me meant sitting with my mother through 3 miscarriages before Daniel was born. It meant 27 years of marriage to a man who left dirty socks on the floor and couldn't cook to save his life, but who loved me unconditionally. It meant raising a son through scraped knees and broken hearts, and late-night talks about life and death and everything in between. It meant inheriting this house not as property, but as responsibility, as trust, as a living connection to people who came before and would come after. You can't steal that. You can only build it yourself, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of love at a time. I've learned things from this experience. Hard things. Painful things. I learned that the people we love can be manipulated, can be turned against us, can fail to see what's right in front of them, and that doesn't make them weak or stupid or unworthy of love. It makes them human. I learned that sometimes the things we think are solid and permanent, relationships, homes, identities, can be more fragile than we imagine. They require protection, attention, active defense. We can't take them for granted. I learned that being right isn't always enough, that truth doesn't automatically triumph, that sometimes you have to fight for what's yours, document it, prove it, defend it with everything you have. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that when everything was stripped away, my son's trust, my social connections, my sense of safety in my own home, I didn't collapse. I got angry. I got strategic. I fought back. And I won. Not perfectly. Not without scars. Daniel and I are still rebuilding our relationship. There are moments of awkwardness, gaps in conversation, where we both remember what happened and fall silent. He's in therapy now, working through the guilt and the betrayal. I'm in therapy too, processing the trauma of having someone systematically try to erase me from my own life. But we're trying. That counts for something. The house is mine again. Legally, emotionally, spiritually, mine. I had the locks changed. I updated my will with a legitimate lawyer, including provisions that explicitly prevent any future daughter-in-law from having power of attorney unless I'm truly incapacitated, and it's confirmed by multiple doctors. I documented everything about Rebecca's fraud and filed it with the county clerk's office, creating a public record that will protect other families from falling victim to her schemes. I also made peace with the fact that this house might end with me. Daniel says he still wants to inherit it someday, but I can see the hesitation in his eyes. This place holds complicated memories for him now. He might choose to sell it after I'm gone, and I've accepted that. The house is stone and wood and glass. What matters is the people who live in it and the love they create within these walls. If Daniel sells it someday, the new owners will never know the full story. They'll never know that Rebecca Sutton once tried to steal it through fraud and manipulation. They'll never know about the forged documents, or the replaced photographs, or the wedding dress in the attic. They'll just see a beautiful Victorian house with good bones and a century of history. And maybe that's okay. Maybe some stories are meant to be private, known only to the people who lived them. Spring came. The roses bloomed again, the same roses my grandmother planted 70 years ago. I tended them carefully, pruning and watering, talking to them the way she used to. Talking to her, really. Telling her the house was safe. Telling her the legacy continued. Telling her I'd protected what she'd entrusted to me. One Sunday in May, Daniel brought someone to dinner. A woman named Grace, a colleague from his architecture firm. She was nervous, polite, genuine. She asked about the house's history, and I told her some stories. Not all of them, not the Rebecca story. Just the good ones. The ones about love and continuity and family. She listened with real interest, asked thoughtful questions, offered no opinions about what should be changed or updated. When she left, she thanked me for dinner and said the house was beautiful. "She seems nice," I said to Daniel as we cleared the dishes. He smiled. "She is. We're taking it slow, very slow. I'm not in any hurry." "Good. And Mom?" He paused, hands in the dishwater. I promise I'll never let anyone come between us again. I'll never doubt you like that again." "You can't promise that, honey. Life is complicated. People are complicated. You might meet someone who's wrong for you, and I might not see it right away. Or you might think I'm being overprotective when I'm actually right. Or 1,000 other scenarios. We're human. We'll make mistakes. Then what do? We talk. We listen. We pay attention. And we trust each other enough to be honest, even when it's hard. I put my hand over his in the warm, soapy water. That's all we can do. He nodded, and we finished the dishes in comfortable silence. I'm 60 now. 3 years have passed since Rebecca left. Daniel is engaged to Grace, and this time I'm genuinely happy about it. She's nothing like Rebecca. She doesn't want to replace me or claim my history as her own. She has her own history, her own family, her own story. She's interested in becoming part of our family, not in erasing the family that already exists. They're planning a small wedding in the garden next fall. Grace asked if she could see my mother's wedding dress, not to wear it, but just to look at it, to understand the history. We spent an afternoon in the attic, going through old trunks and photo albums. She listened to my stories and shared some of her own. She's a widow. Her first husband died of cancer 5 years ago, so she understands grief and loss and the work of rebuilding a life. I'm not trying to replace anyone, she told me. Not your role in Daniel's life, not his father's memory, not the history this family has. I just want to add my own chapter, if there's room. There's room. There's always room for people who come with open hearts and honest intentions. I showed her the photograph on the mantel. Not Rebecca's fake one that's been destroyed, but my real wedding photograph, the one with the cracked glass. "Why didn't you fix the crack?" she asked. "Because it's part of the story. My son threw a baseball through the window when he was 7. Every time I look at this picture, I remember that day. The crash, the fear on his face, the way we laughed about it later. If I replaced the glass, I'd lose that memory. The crack makes it real." She understood. I could see it in her eyes. She's a keeper. The house will survive beyond me. Maybe Daniel and Grace will live here someday. Maybe they'll have children who'll run through these halls and play in the rose garden and throw baseballs through windows. Or maybe they'll sell it to someone else who'll love it in their own way. Either way, the house will stand. It survived everything else. It will survive whatever comes next. As for me, I've stopped worrying so much about legacy and permanence. I've stopped trying to control what happens after I'm gone. I've learned that the only thing we really have is now, this moment, this day, this conversation, this meal, this sunset, this life. Rebecca taught me that, in a strange way. By trying to steal my identity, she forced me to examine what identity actually means. Not the external markers, the house, the photographs, the jewelry, the stories, but something deeper. The self that exists independent of all those things. The core of who we are that can't be taken or forged or replaced. I know who I am now in a way I didn't before. I'm Eleanor Patterson. I'm a mother and a widow and a keeper of stories. I'm the granddaughter of a woman who planted roses and the daughter of a woman who preserved a house through depression and war. I'm the mother of a son who made a terrible mistake and found his way back. I'm a woman who almost lost everything and fought to reclaim it. I'm a survivor, a fighter, a guardian, and I'm enough, just as I am. With or without the house, with or without the photographs, with or without anyone else's recognition or validation. I'm enough. That's the real victory. Not defeating Rebecca or reclaiming the house or even rebuilding my relationship with Daniel. The real victory is knowing, deeply and truly, that I exist independent of all those external things, that I can't be erased, that I can't be replaced, because I'm not a photograph on a wall or a name on a deed. I'm a living, breathing, evolving human being with my own thoughts and feelings and experiences that belong only to me. Rebecca wanted to become me, but she never understood what that meant. She saw the surface, the house, the legacy, the social position, and thought that was all there was. She was wrong. Being me means waking up every morning in this old house with its creaking floors and drafty windows. It means making coffee in my grandmother's kitchen and eating breakfast at a table that's older than I am. It means tending roses that outlived the woman who planted them. It means keeping promises to people who've been dead for decades. It means carrying forward something bigger than myself while still being wholly, completely, undeniably myself. That's what she wanted to steal. And that's what she could never, ever have, because it was never for sale. I'm writing this down as a warning and a testimony, a warning to other women, other families, other guardians of history. Be vigilant. There are people in this world who see your life as something they can claim, your history as something they can appropriate, your identity as something they can steal. Watch for them. Protect what's yours. Trust your instincts. And a testimony to survival, to the possibility of reclaiming what was taken, to the strength we don't know we have until we need it. to the power of truth, even when truth is difficult to prove, to the resilience of love, even when love is tested to its absolute limits. This house will stand long after I'm gone. It's stood for over a century already. It will stand for another century, maybe more. New families will live here. New stories will unfold within these walls. New photographs will hang on the mantel. And somewhere, in an attic box or a forgotten album, maybe someone will find this document. They'll read about a woman named Eleanor who fought to protect her home from someone who tried to steal it. They'll know what happened here. They'll know the truth. That's my legacy, not the house itself, not the furniture or the jewelry or the physical objects, but the story, the truth, the record of what happened and how I survived it. Rebecca wanted to replace my photograph on the wall. Instead, she gave me something much more valuable: absolute clarity about who I am and what I'm capable of. For that, in a strange way, I'm almost grateful. Almost. I still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, heart pounding, thinking I hear footsteps in the hallway. I still catch myself checking the photographs on the wall to make sure they're real, that they haven't been replaced. I still feel a spike of anxiety when Daniel brings someone new to dinner. The trauma doesn't disappear. It becomes part of you, woven into your story, like the crack in the glass of my wedding photograph. But I'm here. I'm still here. In my house, in my life, in my own skin. Myself. Wholly and completely myself. And that's everything. The photograph on the mantel looks back at me every morning, the real one, with my face, my dress, my husband, my past. Beside it, the new photograph of Daniel and me, taken after everything happened. 2 moments, 2 chapters, 1 continuous story. Rebecca's photograph is gone, destroyed, erased from existence. But I remain. That's how you know who wins in the end. Not by who controls the house, or owns the property, or holds the legal documents, but by who's still standing when everything else is stripped away. I'm still standing. I'm still here. I'm still me. And nobody, not Rebecca, not anyone, can ever take that away. This is my house. This is my story. This is my life. And I'm keeping it.